Education Over Debt channel. I am Sheena Hogue and I'm so glad you joined. This is a place where I give practical financial tips that anyone can understand and you can begin to implement now. Today's topic is debt. At the end of 2019, it was reported that the United States had $22.8 trillion in debt. In the United Kingdom, however, it showed that for the first time, they exceeded 2 trillion pounds in debt as of July 2020. So as you can see, there's a vast difference in the amount of debts that we in the United States have compared to the United Kingdom. And I chose the United Kingdom because the pound is worth more than the dollar. Now, in the United States, it shows that we have $1.6 trillion in student loan debt amongst 45 million Americans. An average American has $90,000 in debt, and the age of 40 to 55, in that age range, it shows that those people have the highest amounts of debt. Now, what I would like to talk about in particular is the concept of leveraging debt, because in the United States, we know that we have a lot of debt. When we think about debt, we usually like to be mindful of at least 2 or 3 things. First, we want to be mindful of interest rates. So let's go over what some of those interest rates are. Currently, the mortgage interest rates are showing to be 2.5 up to 4%. For student loans, they're showing to be at 2.75% for undergraduate students, 4.3% for graduate students, and 5.3% for the plus loan. Car notes or car loans are starting at around 2.7% and up, depending on your credit. And then we have credit cards, which could be at 10% and higher, depending on your credit. Now, in the United States, we usually like to say there's good debt and there's bad debt. The good debt would be anything that you have debt on that can appreciate in value. So that would be, for example, mortgage, or some people may even say student loan debt because they look at student loan as an investment in yourself in which you can make a higher income because you've gone to college. They would say bad debt would be credit card debt or car debt, like car loans or auto loans. And the reason why they say that would be bad debt is because we know that cars tend to depreciate in value, and credit cards also will depreciate for the items that you buy. So when we think about debt, we always want to be mindful of the interest rates associated with the debts that we take out, because with interest rates, how that is applied to debt, of course, you have your principal balance, the amount of debt that you take out, and then your interest rate is applied to it based off how long you keep the debt outstanding. So whether it's a month or a few years, the interest rates accrues accordingly. The next thing we think about is the late payment fees associated with that. The reason why late payment fees is important is because late payment fees can show up on your credit report and cause your credit score to reduce. If you make a late payment on something, it can show up on your credit report for 12 to 18 months. And that can ultimately lower your credit score. So you want to be mindful of the interest rates associated with the debt that you take out. And then you also want to be mindful of the late payment fees associated with the debt you take out, because late payments can show up on your credit report and can lower your credit score. The next thing I want you to consider when taking out debt is really how to leverage debt. So we talked about mortgages and we talked about student loans debt being good debt. And why do people think that they're a good debt? People think that they're good debt because they feel like it has some leverage potential, meaning you could get a return on investment for taking out that type of debt. So for example, let's say a mortgage or a house. You take out debt to buy a house because in the United States, houses could range from 50 grand all the way up to $1 million plus, right? And so a lot of people don't have that money just laying around freely, so they take out debt to be able to purchase a home. So with that being said, when you take out the debt, in most cases, people like for you to think about, is this something that you could sell and get a profit from? Especially if it's like your first or second home. So is there any new construction in the neighborhood? Do you see a lot of shops or restaurants or grocery stores that people can go to or live close by if they need to? How are the schools in the areas where you're planning to buy? All these things have an impact on whether or not you'll be able to sell the place in a year or 2 or 5 years and get a profit. Another thing, if you are investing in property, to have it as a rental income or passive income type of investment strategy, people want to think about, will you be able to charge market rate rent for the people that you have living there? Will you be able to increase the rent each year or however for the people that's living there? And when you think about those things, you always want to think about the neighborhood and what's going on around the community. So those are the things you think about when you think about debt that you take out for home ownership, and if it can appreciate in value in the next 5 to 10 years or so on and so forth. The other thing you want to think about is student loan debt. A lot of times people will say, oh, well, taking out student loan is an investment in yourself. Well, how is taking out student loan an investment in yourself? Usually you want to think about, I say 3 things. When I wrote my book in 2012, How to Get a Bachelor's Degree to Little to No Debt, I talked about 3 areas that you want to consider when taking out debt. The first thing you want to think about is your income potential, meaning if you're going to school to be a teacher, for example, if the average salary for a teacher is $40,000 when you get out of undergrad, consider how much debt you take out. In most cases, you don't want to take out $80,000 in student loan debt. Why? Because the debt to income ratio is double, and you want to take out appropriate amount of debt based off your income potential for the first year. And the reason why I always say the first year is because there is no guarantee that you're going to work at the job for 5-10 years. There is no guarantee that they're going to promote you each year. There is no guarantee that you're going to be a manager at that company, on and so forth. When I taught at community colleges, a lot of times people would tell me they want to major in, let's say, business because they want to be a manager and they're planning to make all this money as a manager. But the reality is, as soon as they come out of school, they're not going to be a manager. They're going to be in an entry-level position. And so in that entry-level position, how much do you plan to make? Because you don't know how long it will take you to get to that managerial role, or you don't know if you even like what you do when you get out of school. What if you decide to change your career and you want to do something different? So then what? Now you have all this debt for this career you thought you was going into, and you didn't go into that career. So you want to be mindful for your income potential when you go to school and take out student loans. The next thing you want to be mindful of is your time horizon. How long do you think it will take you to pay off this debt? Again, that's the whole debt to income ratio. If you're going to school to be a teacher where they're making $40,000, you don't want to take out $80,000 in student loans because that's already double the income that you would make. And so realistically, we know that you're not going to take and pay all of your money towards your student loan. You're not going to take your whole salary and pay it towards your student loan. You still have to eat. You still have to pay taxes, health insurance, retirement, other things. So you want to think about how long will it take for you to pay off this debt based off the salary that you plan to make when you come out of school. And then last but not least, I would tell people to consider the economy. What's going on in the economy in regards to employment rates and unemployment rates? Is unemployment going up? Is unemployment going down? Do you see people hiring in your field, in your area? You know, you don't want to go to school majoring in something that people no longer see value in, or people no longer are hiring for. When I was in grad school, my teacher told us, my professor, she said something. She said, if you go on a job interview and everyone is using a typewriter and you know we're using computers, this is a job offer you would accept. You don't want to accept that job because they're not staying abreast with time. They're not staying abreast with what's going on in our country or what's going on in technology or your field or what have you. We're using computers. They're still using typewriters. And so that always stood out to me because I've interviewed with companies and I've seen where they have not been staying abreast with things and they're still doing things the old way. Now, I'll be honest and say that I didn't realize some of those things until I actually started working there. But nevertheless, that was something that I did consider when going into the office for that interview. And I know nowadays that may be a little bit hard because people are doing interviews over Zoom. So you don't really get to see your work environment, how people are really working. But you can even think about Zoom and see, well, how are they managing that software to do the interview? So those are some things that you could think about when interviewing for these jobs and making sure that you stay abreast. But in particular, you want to think about the economy and see what's going on in the economy. Right now, you know, we're facing a pandemic that's impacting everybody. Some companies have been laying off left and right. Some companies have not. Some companies have increased their hiring practices during this time because of the growing need and demand. So you want to think about that and how would that impact you when you graduate? Now we are more politically conscious, I think, and so I think more young people are involved in the political arena and understanding what's going on with the economy. So I think this is something where it's easier to understand versus when I went to school, I wasn't really involved in a political arena or looking at the economy. You know, my parents would say something to me about looking at the economy, but I wasn't really paying attention. And so they pointed out a few things to me that I later learned to be beneficial later on in life. So those are the things you want to think about when taking out student loan debt, and how you can leverage the debt to work in your favor. You want to think about the income potential, your time horizon, and the economy. And then when you think about car loans, well, car loans, the reason why people say car loans and credit card is bad debt is because those things tend to depreciate over time. So with a car loan, you know, you want to think about your interest rates for your car loans, just to be mindful of, are you paying double because of the interest rate on this car loan? And how quickly does this car depreciate? Some cars depreciate at a faster rate than other cars. So you want to think about that. How long will I likely have this car? Will it still be running in 5-10 years? You want to think about that. And then you want to think about your interest rate and just, you know, are you paying double for this car because of the interest rate? Like if you had a lower interest rate, would you be paying, you know, close to the amount that the car is actually worth? So those are things you want to think about. And of course you want to think about any fees associated with that. Credit card debt, you just want to pay it off each month because of the interest that accrues on it daily. So those are the things you want to think about when you think about leveraging debt and how you can use that to get ahead. You want to think about what is your return on investment and the time horizon to pay off the debt. Thank you for watching this short video on debt. Please let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. You can drop a comment below, or you can reach out to me on Facebook and Instagram. Again, it has been my pleasure to talk to you about some financial tips today. Share this video if you found it to be beneficial, and make sure you like, share, and comment on all social media platforms. Thanks.